Welcome to the Samueletini Show, where business, innovation, and sustainability converge to drive progress. Are you ready to uncover solutions shaping our future? Let's dive in. Welcome to a new episode. And today on the show, we are going to meet a practitioner, somebody that has been at the forefront of sustainability in the not for profit space and now in the corporate world. She's a climate and sustainability specialist. I'm very pleased to welcome today Dr. Anyse Pereira. Thank you so much, Anyse, for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Samuel. It's a pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about my experiences, my journey, and what I've been doing so far, and also learning with you because I'm sure this will be a very nice conversation.
Fantastic, Anis. It's always good to have leaders, especially coming from the African continent, since we are based in Africa, that are making strides, of course, in the sustainability and the corporate world. Before going into that and understanding how you have really implemented sustainability in your career, I want to know a bit more about you. What is your journey and how you have entered this world?
Thank you for that question, Samuel. Always have to think where to begin with. So I am from Cabo Verde Islands. I'm African from the islands, West Africa. And I think my career started with me reading Marie Curie book at 7 and deciding to be a scientist. So that's when it started. And I went for it. I grew up. I studied pharmacy in Cabo Verde, and then I moved to Europe to pursue my master's and my PhD, all very scientific, genetics, molecular biology. And I think I still consider myself a scientist. I'm a very data oriented person. But since the middle of my PhD, that was when I was presented to the project world. And now, if I'm to sum up my career with two words, is I am a project manager. I'm a project and programs manager. That's who I am. I started working with a small project while in Portugal with the communities, supporting children of migrants that were doing not so well in school. Then I had the chance also to work with organization called the Next Einstein Forum. And I had the privilege to design and implement the African Science Week in Cabo Verde. That was one of the first marks of my career and very, very meaningful to me. And it was we can talk about it later. It was very impactful to the point that it was publicized in the country, in the national TV, but also internationally. Around that time, I also started working for the UN, which of course was a big step for me coming from from the academic world, from small projects. And then I started working with programs for the first time with portfolios, blue economy, blue finance, implementing what I learned in university and the small projects into the real deal, working with communities, with bilateral agencies, with government partners. So it was a really enriching experience. I was there for a little bit more than 2 years. I had a small period in the US with it was not long. It was a couple of months, but I do mention it because it was really interesting. It was at the African Wildlife Foundation working there. Very, very nice people. They do have a headquarters in Kenya too. I don't know if you know them. You probably do. Very, very nice people. And it was really enriching working with conservation of fauna for the first time because I was working before with plants, conservation of biodiversity in plants and genetic biodiversity, endemic plants, so on. And then I went into the animals. It was really interesting. But since then I decided that I wanted to have more of an international career. Started applying. Was frustrated because you know how the application goes. Eventually, I landed a role at Mercy Corps, which was the role I had previous to this. It was I take Mercy Corps in my heart, a very great organization. Everyone in there, from the chief climate officer that was my boss, to the all the colleagues, to the CEO herself. Everyone's so great. But then we know what happened with the development sector in the beginning of this year. Tons of layoffs, tons of people's lives being derailed. And I had to let that opportunity go after almost 3 years. And now I'm here in Toyota. So I started in corporate.
Hmm.
It's a nice turn of events, me applying all that data driven mentality and product management tendency that I have into corporate, into sustainability linked to corporate, to profit, to business. And it has been a good journey so far. Lots of learning and lots of implementing as well. Lots of challenges, but that's what I like.
Fantastic, Anis. And it's really a wonderful journey. Thank you for being honest, because usually when they say, I did this, and that, but there is also a lot of rejected application and failures along the way.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, my
it's
God.
and it's really interesting, your work from the science, then the projects, then the big organization, and now the corporate world. And that's why, also your profile stick me say, let's go and discuss with such practitioners and leaders that really know the nitty and gritty on how to implement, how to deliver also sustainability at the grassroots level, at the work that is important, especially for corporate and not for profit. And on my first question for you is this: not for profit sometimes, especially here, I believe in Africa, progetto, no? Come si dice in portoghese, a grande, grande aspettativa, expectation, sorry, great expectation, things. But then there is also that discussion about, is it going to be real change? Is it going to be something that impact life? So how you have fostered that? How you have approached, and which tactics have you used to really deliver, especially in your experience, and especially the one also you mentioned?
Just to clarify, you're talking about the impact of the
Impact, yes.
products.
The impacts, yes. How you have delivered impacts and work, yes.
Samuel, as I told you, I knew I would come back to this story. Many years ago, I implemented the African Science Week in Cabo Verde. And it integrated a lot of this, of sustainability. It was, so imagine this. I brought together about 350 students from high school to the main university to have a day of immersion in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And also in the same scope of the African Science Week, I was able to organize I don't know if there is any other event like that or has been since then in West Africa, which I was able to bring together politicians from all parliamentarian groups. So parliamentarians themselves, some secretaries of states, some ministers, together with scientists and researchers for the first time in the country to talk tete a tete about issues, about science driven decision making. And that had a lot of impact. It was a project that had a budget of, I think, 3,000 USD. So I did a lot with very, very little.
Wow.
That last thing I told you, the Science Parliament, it was called the Science Parliament. I remember that I spent exactly €5 because I was able to mobilize the right people. I was able to find the right support, the right network. I was able, of course, to sell it to the parliamentarians to bring the media into it.
Mm.
And at the end, the €5 was the gas that I put in my car to drive to the venue. The venue was free, water was free, everything was free. So the thing is, impact is, it's connected to the purpose.
Yeah.
What was the purpose? The purpose, if it's there, if it's real, then you have the impact. It was very impactful. It was the first of its kind in the region. It was publicized all over the national news and international as well. and I spend €5 in it. So I think that's where the impact starts with purpose.
Mm, mm. And it's really such an important lesson, this one, because I can see you don't need the huge thing, but if it's done with purpose, if it's done also taking, as you said, the right connection, you can have you really multiplier effect with something that $3,000 that is a very small budget, and five $5 for you, €5 for you to fuel the car. It's really something that struck to me. We'll come back, to projects and things. Maybe because I really want to thank you for this example. It's such an important one. And now, if I can go to the second step for you, it is the corporate world. So now you have transitioned to this world of corporate. So how do you also embed sustainability in that space? So maybe with the material procurement, design, and others. So how do you? It's more difficult, I suppose, than maybe working for an NGO. So how do you really make sure that sustainability is at the in certain in such a more complex environment?
So if it's more difficult, it's different. It's very different because the drivers are different. The objectives of the organizational structure are different. I would classify it as just one different, not more complicated or less. I would say so. These last days, we're talking a lot about in the organization about what is what drives us, what is the purpose of us deciding to be more sustainable, and that needs to be really clear. Is it values? So is it because the company has sustainability embedded as a value? Is it value? So monetary, here we're talking about money. Is it money, business value, or is it compliance? And we need to have that very clear so we can understand how we can approach the sustainability. If it's compliance, then we do the bare minimum. We do the bare minimum just in order for us to be compliant to the EU Parliament, to if we have shareholders, if we have investors, if we have owners, if we have presence in multiple countries, we just look into the compliance part and we make sure that we are within those lines. If we understand also that sustainability can give us access to new markets or can take or the lack of sustainability can retrieve us from certain markets, we start to understand that there is a business case to be made about sustainability. It's not just about the trees and about the turtles and about the plastic. It's about business. It's about monetary value. So how we understand that? And that's the problem. That's a real problem that I see with people like me, like you, that live in the sustainability bubble. For us, it's very clear the impact, the macro impact, but then the business impact. And then once we perceive that, how do we communicate to the main decision makers within a certain company? That communication part sometimes has been challenging because if we're talking trees to someone that wants to hear numbers, then we lost them. And the last part is value. Is many now we know that customers are one of the main stakeholders of any business, and they want to be connected to someone that represents them in terms of values as well. Are we that company? Are we that company that makes the customer at ease with gives the customer the satisfaction and the certainty that sustainability is embedded in us, not just because we need to be compliant, but because we also live up to it as a value. And that's what I would say that is the different parts that if we're looking only to a non-profit view way of thinking, I'm sure that those three aspects would be a little bit different.
And I can understand it's not that easy because, of course, sometimes priority can differ. And you need to convince, and this is a good lesson, how to do it in practice. Because, as you said, as from the podcast, when we discuss sustainability with like minded people, is easy. We understand this, we should do this and the other. But of course, with somebody that is, you put it very well. If he wants numbers, you talk about trees and turtles and others, they will not talk to you. And how do you convince them? How do you convince that it's really we go beyond, let's say, just compliance and really embed sustainability, and that is so crucial for any business.
Really interesting because I've been doing that and this is not the first time. So that I need to do or I needed to do in every role in UNDP, with Mercy Corps, the local governments, other bilateral agencies, multilateral agencies. Resources are finite. We don't have unlimited resources, whatever organization we work for or with. So we need to sell sustainability, sell actions, sell programs, projects as a priority, and we need to be convincing. So we need to be able to understand what are the priorities that the person that we're going to talk with has. That's it, where we have to understand their needs, their wants. If we're going again with things that are important to us only, and we think because it's important to us that it should be important to those people and to everyone. I mean, everyone should care about trees because if we don't have trees, at one point, oxygen becomes a problem. And that's logic. But maybe oxygen is not really, we have it around, is not really something that they're thinking about. So we need to start understanding their needs. And I think if we come out of now I'm missing the word. So the virtue signaling way of approaching things. Oh, you need to do this because if you don't, you're a bad person or you're a bad organization. I don't think that works. That's one approach. And another approach that I don't think that is advisable is the alarmist, the ultra alarmist approach. Because then if everyone is going to die anyway in a few years because of the 1.5, 1.9, the 2%, the climate scenarios, then okay, I might as well just do the best that I can this time and just don't care because we're going to die anyway and nothing matters. So we need to find a better way of advocating for it. And we need also to understand that not every time that is going to be a priority, even if we make our best effort.
And this is such an humbling lesson because sometimes, especially in the movement, in sustainability, in people, we think we raise that, as I said, the alarmist view and the other, but we need also to do some autocritic. We know these things from 1970, but nothing has much changed. The change has been there, but it's very slow. So maybe, as you say, it's very important to really understand what is important and to drive change, significantly understanding the needs and trying to get some result rather than just putting alarm without really getting into the real decision making. It's such an important point because it also helps to bring together people rather than dividing and with the alarmist or other or the virtue signaling. So we need to bring on board people rather than dividing ourselves in bad or good or other. So this is a very good and practical way to approach the problem. And I want to ask on that, have you got any project or any example that is close to your heart that as a leader that you have made, these strides that it's really, you have seen the change, you have seen something that is delivered some result and it's really something that you want to, 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 to bring as an example on how to deliver sustainability?
Yes. So I also been working as a consultant, some consultancies, and one of the last consultancies I did was with Fauna and Flora International. I'm sure you know them. And it was about doing the CVCA, so the climate vulnerability and risk capacity analysis in Cabo Verde. Since the beginning of my journey. Well, since the beginning of me as a person, I think once I started becoming social, the community played a very big role in my life. So, and we know I come from a society. I believe that in Kenya, maybe similar, that is not ultra individualistic. We believe in community, we believe in being together in society. And I would say that studying, doing my PhD really cemented that because I had a huge part of my PhD focusing in traditional knowledge. So, traditional knowledge backed by science. And once in my projects, I always made it a point to include community in all the processes, all the steps of project management, from conception to implementation to MNL and monitoring and evaluation, everything. And as I was doing this project with the communities in Cabo Verde, it was 6 islands, and I guess, had the task to train the team that was going to implement to ask. And I think it was exactly what I like to do. So we structure everything, the questions, the questionnaire, the method. We go to the community and we ask them. They guide us, they give us, because besides or aside from what is written in government official documents, shows in the official reports, the community knows. We go there, okay, you have this plan of climate adaptation, is it working? Do you feel it? It has been done 14 years ago, 10 years ago. Does it still make sense for you? And tell us about it. Do you notice changes in environment? We ask the fishermen, oh, okay, we see that now there are more days in a month that we cannot go to the sea because we have rough seas. Okay, they told us they leave it. We study it, they leave it. Even the people that sell the fish, okay, do you notice any difference? Oh, if you see here in the market, there are less colors in the market because before we had more different fishes. Now all fishes almost have the same color. This way of explaining things, I think it really translates what really is the impact, the true impact of climate alterations, of the impact in the real lives of people. And then gathering all of this information, having a meeting with government officials, and then they will come with all the technical knowledge. Oh, okay, yeah, it's not really like that, but it is like that because the people are feeling it. So I would say that this was a project that is in my heart. It was very recent, but I remember it very dearly. At the end, we were able to bring some people from the communities to have the meeting with the government officials, the stakeholders as well. So it's still ongoing because I participated in a small part of the project. It's still ongoing, but the goal is to have those considerations integrated into the adapted and updated climate adaptation plans.
It's really such an important point. Every conference you go, I mean, you have been in all of those. We need to hear the voice, incorporate the indigenous knowledge, the discussion, and then let's say most often and then not is a top-down approach. The community may be nothing or one or two people just to signal. But what I really like that sentence, I wrote it here, how they feel the plan, how they feel the policy, how they feel also the change. That is where I really think it's such an overlooked area. We really need to discuss with the people, work with them, because that is only the way we can get a very good feedback and a very good impact on what we are doing. So how they are living and how this is impacting them rather than, as you say, pre-made consideration or just idea. So it's an important point that you have made, and also a change, a shift that is often not done. I mean, from my experience here, in many years, also from yours, it's not always the case. I want to ask you a question because I'm sure you are. young lady from Africa. Now you have climbed the ladder. You are now working at a big brand that everybody knows, especially here on the continent and worldwide. So especially for our audience, especially the youth, Africa, the pyramid of youth is huge, and many people they want like you, to really bring the voice of the queen, bring their experience, bring to be leaders, to be protagonists of change. How, which capability, which recommendation you would say that they need to develop, and now you and share from your experience?
All right. So actually, that's a very interesting question, Samuel, because I also, I have mentorship initiative that I started supporting young professionals from the Lusophone countries. So now I started working mostly with African Lusophone countries, and I noticed that some Anglophone and Francophone never heard the word Lusophone. So for those people watching us, Lusophone is the African countries that speak Portuguese, where I think we're five or six.
Mm,
And now I'm also working with Portuguese people,
mm,
supported them. Why? Because there is huge number of people in that situation. So well, people that went to the university that have the degrees but are unable to enter the job force. Most of them are migrants, and we know that in Europe it will be complicated for them. In Australia, in Canada, in the US, there are so many changes. We started talking about the frustration of entering the job market. It is of entering, of transitioning. It's very complicated. We are in a digital revolution, and it will keep on changing. So we need to be adapted. So that's what I do. And the thing I tell them is to understand, and I hope this message stays very clear. You might want to work for Toyota, for the UN, because they're big brands, but your biggest brand is you. You are your biggest brand. You need to see yourself and treat yourself, your career as a brand. You need to understand how you can grow independently of the place you're working with. In the beginning of the year, there was the massive layoffs in the development sector. We saw some people committing, ending their lives, and it's very sad. We know that that is way more than a number in the corporate organizational board. It's the lives of families that are being impacted by that. And I do understand the desperation, but we cannot connect our value to the place we're working with. We have our value as professionals, as persons, as individuals, has to be separated in that. I'm very glad to had opportunity to work in with big names, but I know that I am my biggest friend. And once I understood that, I think I grew more as a professional and as a person.
Thank you so much, Anisa, for this lesson that sometimes, it's often so people look for the opportunities without, thinking of themselves and also bringing their values rather than selling them, if I can put it in this way for the brands or others, but it's really such an important part. And especially for the youth, there is a huge frustration. Yes.
Going to say that you're a very good example, Samuel, because you have you work at a
Yeah.
place. You have
Yes.
your company, but the brand Samuel is transcendent to that place. To that organization. You exist as a professional in sustainability independently of your role as a director.
Exactly.
So you built a brand. Take Samuel as an example. People listening.
Asante sana. Obrigado. No, and that is the way. Also, it's such an important thing because it's exactly the strategy. When you were mentioning, it's actually the strategy that I try to develop. Be a brand, to be also to share. To be somebody that can be also where to put my values and what I believe, and bringing some voices like yours and others into the scene. So For me, it's a. I would say that was one of the episodes what most interesting for me, but a lot of lessons and a lot of food for thoughts, especially on this, especially for the younger people and the younger generation that we are trying to groom and that they are coming also to the work life, especially in the continent, because it's such an important responsibility, and they will be now the majority of the people living into the planet in the next 50 to 60 years. So we really need to have them on board and really anchored to the values of sustainability, preserving the planet and really making the world a better place, I would say.
Okay, and a livable place, a place that we want to give
Mm.
it. Last year at COP, this expression was really echoed, which is intergenerational equity.
Mm.
So, what did we receive and what are we giving to the next
Mm.
generation?
Mm. I think we have been burning a lot of equity uh, more than we are growing. I would say in the last year it's time to restore at least a more balanced intergenerational say equilibrium within our planet. Anis, thank you so much for your wonderful episode. Thank you for sharing great insights on how to deliver sustainability, also how to transform, also think differently on how to communicate with the movement and other people, and also how to become an expert that is just or a brand of yourself, because that was a very interesting point of talk. Thank you so much, Anis.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Samuel. It was a really, really interesting conversation. And yes, please let's continue off the cameras throughout the day in our work, knowing that sustainability is not constrained into a department or into a group. It's something that we live with every day, either we know it or not. It impacts us. So it's way more than that. Let's live it.
Thank you, Anis.
Are you satisfied after this wonderful episode? Let's continue together our sustainability journey.